I thought that I knew all of the expressions that I needed to order food in Korean. But when I went on my exchange program there a few years ago, I realized that ordering food in Korean is a lot more than just simply pointing at something and saying 이거 주세요. Today I'm going to be sharing with you all of the expressions I wish that I knew earlier about ordering food in Korean. 여기 뭐가 맛있어요? When you're in a restaurant in Korea, you might not know what's good there or even what you want to order. Just ask whoever your server is, 여기 뭐가 맛있어요? Which means what is delicious here. I know it might seem like rude or a bit weird to ask that question, but it's totally normal and fine when you're in Korea, especially as a foreigner. 여기 means here or whatever place you're at. 뭐 simply means what, and 맛있어 means delicious. We add the yo at the end because it's a suffix for casual politeness. 추천하시겠어요? If you want to ask the waiter which item they recommend from the menu, this is what you can ask them. 추천하시겠어요? It literally means, what do you recommend? I personally love doing this in restaurants that I'm not familiar with because it helps me to know which is actually good. Like, what is the best dish you can find? So if you're like me and want to try this out, just say 추천하시겠어요? 메뉴 좀 주세요. Most of the time, the waiter or waitress will give you a menu when you sit down at the restaurant. But if they don't, you can just ask them, 메뉴 좀 주세요. Menu means menu in Korean, and 좀 means please. It just lowers the intensity of 주세요, which means please give. 이거 뭐예요? This means, what is this? 이게 means this, 뭐 means what, and 예요 is the simple present form of to be. Don't be afraid to ask a waiter or waitress what something is in Korean. It's totally fine if you don't know. Plus, it's better to ask what something is instead of ordering something that you end up hating and paying a lot of money for. If you want more examples of how to use these words and phrases in real life, I recommend you check out FluentU. My favorite feature is the video dictionary, which shows you tons of examples, video examples of words that you are learning. This way you're able to see what you're learning actually used in real life, which when I'm studying Korean, it's very beneficial because sometimes words, like, you learn them, but you don't know how to use them at all. So I find this feature really helpful with FluentU. I actually have a link in the description for 2 weeks, absolutely free. 명이에요. This is something you say right when you arrive at a restaurant. The host will probably ask you, 몇 명이에요? Which means how many people are there in your group. 몇 is a determiner and it determines how many or how much of something. You use 명이에요 to tell the host how many people are in your group. So you can say 두 명이에요 if there are 2 people in your group. And similarly, you can say 세 명이에요 if there are 3 people in your group, and so on. 명 is a classifier for people. So even when you're not at a restaurant, but you're talking about an amount of people, add 명 afterwards. It acts as a counter. By the way, if you're finding this video useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up so you can let us know. 저기요! When you are finally ready to order, you can use 저기요 to call the waiter over to your table. 저기요 means, hey, you over there. Even though it might sound informal when you translate it into English, it's actually very polite and very common to just say 저기요 to call somebody over to your table when you're ordering. Keep in mind though, you may have to say this quite loudly since a lot of restaurants are very busy and loud. Little extra info on 저기요. You can use it for a lot more than just calling somebody over to your table. You can use it when you just simply want to get someone's attention and you don't know their name. Like 저기요? 저기요?
저기요. 이상한 사람이 같아.
This is because 저기 means hello or excuse me. It gets someone's attention in a polite way. So you can say things like 저기 누구세요? Or 저기요, 이거 좀 도와주실래요? And don't worry you guys, this is polite Korean and it is used all the time. So it's really good to know this word. Another little tip is you can also use 여기요 instead of 저기요 when calling someone over to your table. There is no difference between these two phrases. They mean the exact same thing. 여기요 means over here and 저기요 means excuse me. 주문할게요. Similarly to 저기요 or 여기요, we use 주문할게요 to get the waiter's attention when you're ready to order. 주문 means order, and 할게요 means will do. So if you put it together, it means I will order. 주문할게요 is more specific than 저기요, and specifically is used in a restaurant. 주문할게요, like I'm ready to order. Fun fact, I actually heard 주문할게요 a lot more than 저기요 when I was in a restaurant in Korea. 주문하시겠어요? This is a very formal way of asking someone what they would like to order. 주문하시겠어요? It's like the same thing as what may I get you today in English. This is commonly paired with 지금. The waiter or waitress will say 지금 주문하시겠어요? To ask if you want to order now. So if you call the waiter or waitress over using the above expressions that I just taught you, they will probably say 지금 주문하시겠어요? Or just simply 주문하시겠어요? 이거 주세요. This is a phrase that you need to know. 이거 means this, and 주세요 means please give. So when you're ordering food in Korean, you can simply point to something, not even say the name of the dish, just point at it on the menu and say 이거 주세요 to let the waiter know that you want that. Bonus tip, you can also use 이거 주세요 when you're in places like a store and you want a worker to get something for you. Or if you're at a salon and you're pointing to a picture of a certain hairstyle that you want.
이거 주세요.
Take out 주세요. Here we have our friend 주세요 again. You'll literally hear 주세요 all the time in Korea in so many different circumstances. You say this after you're ordering food if you want takeout. Takeout 주세요. Takeout means takeout in English. Pretty similar, huh?
그냥 테이크아웃 전에 드세요.
So when you combine takeout plus 주세요, you've got takeout 주세요. Takeout please. Please give me takeout. Bonus tip. If you want to ask if a place has a takeout option, simply ask 여기 takeout 됐나요? 여기서 먹어요. This is the opposite of saying that you want takeout. 여기 means here and 먹어 means eat. The little 서 that comes after 여기 is a preposition meaning at or in. Put it all together and it means eating in or dining in. So you can just say 여기서 먹어요 to say that you'll be eating in the restaurant. 이거 얼마예요? This is derived from 얼마나, which means how much, or how long. So when you ask 얼마예요, you're asking how much something is. Most items in a restaurant will have prices on them. But if something doesn't, you can simply point at it and ask 이거 얼마예요? And then they will respond with the price. 잘 먹겠습니다. This is similar to bon appetit in French and iratakimasu in Japanese. This is what you say in Korea right before you eat a meal. It's the most formal way to say it and very common. You can also say 잘 먹을게 or 잘 먹을게요. This is a more casual way to thank somebody for buying you a meal. Bonus tip, 잘 means well in Korean. And you'll hear this in a lot of phrases. Like when you say 잘 자요, sleep well, or 잘했어요, you did well. Here are a few more examples with FluentU's video dictionary.
잘 익은 김치를 썰어놓고 바삭하게 부친 김치전을 한 번 더.
오빠 잘 지내? 음성 메시지도 듣지 마.
이거 좀 더 주세요. If you're eating and you run out of side dishes or 반찬 and want some more, you can simply point to whatever you want more of and say 이거 좀 더 주세요.
더 means more in Korean. And if you combine it with 좀, which means a little bit, you get please give me a little bit more of this.
이모 여기 양파 좀 더 주세요.
Some of the side dishes or 반찬 that I personally run out of the most are kimchi, the typical spicy pickled radish, japchae, Korean glass noodles, 감자조림, braised potatoes, and 단무지, pickled radish. And remember, 좀 is simply an enhancer and just softens the intensity of the verb. As you can see, 좀 can be used in many different circumstances. Let's use FluentU's video dictionary to look at some more examples of how 좀 is used in real life.
이렇게 약간 좀 살짝
물 좀 주세요. Here is yet another example of how you use 좀 in a restaurant. 물 means water in Korean. So, given what we've talked about so far, what do you think 물 좀 주세요 means? It's the polite way to ask for water. Not necessarily more water, though. Remember what we talked about? 좀 is just an enhancer. 물 주세요 sounds a lot more like, give me this. But if you say 물 좀 주세요, softens it. Makes it a lot more nice. 잘 먹었습니다. This is something you can say once you've finished your meal to show whoever served you that you ate well. That's literally what it means. I ate well. 잘 먹었습니다. It's interpreted though as thank you for the meal. Remember not to get this mixed up with 잘 먹었습니다. They do sound similar, but they're basically like the complete opposite. 잘 먹었습니다 before you eat a meal. 잘 먹었습니다 after you eat the meal. 영수증 주세요. 영수증 means receipt in Korean. And trust me, you're going to want to know this simple word when you go to Korea. I didn't know this word for the longest time in Korea, which resulted in me having very awkward conversation with cashiers when they would ask me if I wanted a receipt and I had no idea what the word 영수증 meant. You can say this when, again, you're at the cash register, you're paying for your meal and you want your receipt back. Just say 영수증 주세요 to let them know. It's the same thing in English as I'd like my receipt, please. 영수증 필요 없어요. On the other hand, if you don't want your receipt, just say 영수증 필요 없어요. 필요 means need and 없어 means be not or not have. In short, it's negative. So when you say 필요 없어요, you're literally saying I don't need it. Combine that with 영수증 and you get 영수증 필요 없어요. I do not need the receipt. 카드를 넣을 수 있어요? When you're saying this, you're asking if you can pay with your card. This is important to ask because not all places, especially street vendors, allow you to use a card to pay. So before you just hand them your debit card or your credit card, you should probably say 카드를 넣을 수 있어요? Just to make sure. Let's talk about 로 for a second because I was very confused when I first heard this and had an experience with it. 로 means with, but when you're talking about using something as a tool. Because this is kind of confusing, let's look at a few more examples.
쏙! 둘 남아있는 멤버십 포인트로 데이터를 충전!
센불로 한번 끓여주고 그리고 약불로 1시간 동안 은근하게 졸여주도록 하겠습니다.
So when you use 로 in 카드로 넣을 수 있어요, you're talking about your card as a tool to be used. You're using your card to perform an action, and that's why you're using 로 afterwards, using it as a tool. 현금으로 넣을 수 있어요? If you would rather use cash to pay for your meal, you can simply ask if you can use it by saying 현금으로 넣을 수 있어요? 현금 is cash in Korean, the actual physical cash that's not on a card. So when they tell you the price of the meal at the restaurant, when you're gonna pay, it's the perfect time to say 현금으로 넣을 수 있어요?
If you want to review all of these expressions again so that you never forget them, I created a free PDF just for you in the description below. It includes all of the terms that I mentioned in this video. And if you like watching K-dramas and Netflix, I have the perfect video for you right over there. It's all about how to use Netflix to study Korean. I also break down some of my favorite K-dramas on Netflix and how I specifically use each one to improve my Korean. I think it will be really useful for you, so I will see you over